I grew up on the countryside in a little small village in Finland. I was surrounded by forests and lakes. Summers were for swimming, picking berries. Winters were for sledging and for building snow castles. So I wasn't just surrounded by nature, but it was a vital part of my childhood. It was a privileged childhood. I was also a child of the new millennia, the optimism of joining the EU, the early days of digitalization. And it felt like the world was finally healing after decades of conflict. And we felt more connected than ever, in a good way. And I remember sitting in classroom thinking how great the world would be when I grew up, how we were already doing so many things so well, so that grown-ups would continue to make good decisions. And by the time I was old, the world would be amazing. 10-year-old me believed that it would only take one generation to create justice, peace, and prosperity on this planet. But I was wrong. And instead, it took a turn for the worse. And I learned that it wasn't just about nature. It was about sustainability, resilience, climate change. It was about extreme weathers, about injustices, colonialism. It was about systems that seemed impossible to change. So for a long time, I felt really helpless. But I did what was supposed to be done. So I educated myself, I studied, went to conferences, read articles, and protested. And yet it felt strange. In rooms full of people who knew and who cared, who talked about the solutions and about the things we needed to do, the world outside those rooms just kept going. It was business as usual. Some of my friends did nothing, and others went protesting every week. And that was it. And while protesting is powerful, it wasn't the sole thing I wanted to do. I wanted to find something that combined activism with advocacy. So when in 2022, an advertisement came across my way, inviting young people from across the Nordic and Baltic Sea region to a climate camp in Åland Islands in Finland, I signed up immediately. And arriving there, it just clicked. I was surrounded by more like-minded people than ever in my life, sharing fears, hopes, stories, and frustrations. Each of us brought a perspective shaped by our culture and experience. And together we imagined what real change could look like. So I decided to commit and have been part of the Regeneration 2030 movement ever since. And our mission is simple: to mobilize young activists from across the Nordic and Baltic Sea region to achieve climate and social justice through real economic and political change. We push for a systemic transformation, a change that puts people and planet over profit. And that means questioning power and privilege. It means addressing the root cause of the climate crisis and not just treating the symptoms. And that's what systemic change is about. It's about changing the rules and building systems where sustainability and justice comes first. But our goal isn't just to act. It's about empowering others as well. Much of our work happens quietly, by building bridges between young people, young activists, and connecting them with each other and with movements back home. Every year, we gather on the Åland Islands in Finland for our Regeneration Week. Over 100 young people, together with decision makers from across the region. And together we learn and strategize and imagine what the future could look like. We also learned that while education is great to understand these complex issues, knowledge in itself isn't enough. Because often young people have the knowledge, but they lacked the skills in how to organize themselves. Through our educational program, we train a new generation of leaders to take climate action, giving them the tools and experience that they need to lead and to organize. And through our movement, we're often invited to spaces that were previously closed to young people. And we have the chance to speak up and to speak directly to policymakers. We're invited because we're the future, the hope, the rising leaders, and because they say that they value our opinions. But by the time we're invited up to speak, the room has already cleared out. And those who are left will even listen to what we have to say. So while many spaces have opened up to young people and to other groups, true inclusion and accountability is still missing, and many voices continue to get lost, such as immigrants, refugees, or other marginalized groups. And the Nordic and Baltic Sea region is unique in many ways. We're front runners in the green and digital transition. We're ranked highly in global indexes. And they say that we're leaders in sustainability. And while 70% of the people in the Nordics believe that climate change is a problem, our talk doesn't equal our action. Rich countries such as Finland or Norway are the least affected by the climate crisis, yet the ones who are responsible for most of the emissions, both present and historically. And we've known about the climate crisis and the climate change for decades. It was mentioned in the news already 110 years ago. The tools and opportunities to commit are there. But instead, every 10 years, we promised to act. And every 10 years, the emissions keep on rising. What happened to the promises made in 2015? So the best time to act was decades ago. The second best time is right now. So it's time to step up or to step aside and take some real responsibility. And I don't believe I need to explain the climate change further, but I want you to understand this. We're at a turning point in history, and already unimaginable things have happened. In 2024, we exceeded the 1.5 degree limit we were told to stay below just a decade ago. And just weeks ago, we hit a planetary tipping point, the widespread death of coral reefs. So what we do in the coming years will determine the future of our planet and of generations to come. And the cost of action will be smaller than the cost of inaction. So I'm sorry, but recycling, green or circular economy, or even technological solutions won't solve the climate crisis. Only systemic change will. And this means redesigning cities around people, not cars. And it means shifting from endless growth to well-being and care for the planet. And it means committing to the promises that have been made. Why is change so hard when we already have the answers? Real change is uncomfortable. Let it sit for a moment. People fear what systemic change will mean to them personally. And policymakers and industries remain comfortable with business as usual. And it's easier to support the fossil fuel system that we know of than to build something new. Yet humans have shown that in times of crisis, we're quick at adapting. During COVID-19, countries came together, made bold decisions, proving that rapid action is possible. So change by now is inevitable. But if we act now, change can mean cleaner air, resilient communities, restored ecosystems, and a stable future for generations to come. And if we don't act, change will still come. But it will be unplanned, unjust, and affect people the most who did the least to cause it. Young people have always stood on the front line of change. This time, we fight for a just transition, for systemic change, for every living system on this planet. But the fight is heavy, and it is sometimes overwhelming. Many of us deal with climate anxiety, with doubts, with burnout. It would be much easier not to care, right? And we have been told not to care. We have been told that what we do isn't going to solve anything, that we should give up, that young people only want rights, but they don't want any responsibilities. So maybe that's why for a long time I didn't even call myself an activist, because I felt like I wasn't doing enough, that I should be doing even more. And the word activist, it felt so negative and so extreme. Some politicians even speak of activists as if we were a threat, as if we were terrorists instead of citizens fighting for our future. But what is really extreme is knowing what's happening and choosing to do nothing. Choosing not to stand up for your own rights or others, not taking any responsibility. In order to keep the movement going, we need hope, care, and connection. And most of all, we need action. And as you know, we can't do this alone. We are all needed. And imagine what the world would look like if we all did take action, if we demanded more from our policymakers. I joined Regeneration 2030 to take my hopelessness and turn it into a feeling of belonging. Because it's not what we fight against, but it's about what we fight for. And what we do is part of something bigger than ourselves. It's a global movement. And that's why I choose to call myself an activist, not a passivist. And I'm not afraid to call myself an activist anymore. And I ask of you too, don't be afraid either. Be more than society wants us to be, more than consumers, workers, or passive citizens. Find a way in which you can be an activist in your daily life. When I was little, I dreamed of the next millennium, a prosperous and beautiful future for all. I dreamt that the children would be able to swim in the lakes, pick berries in the forest, and build grand snow castles. But now imagining life after 2050 feels almost impossible. Policymakers and industries have let us down. And while I wait for grown-ups to start making better decisions again, I continue my activism. We need to start fighting for a better future, not against it. And we need to ask policymakers to step up to the promises that they made, or have them step down and let the young people lead the way. Thank you.